Well, welcome back to Creative Conversations.
Yeah.
Me getting to talk to fun people in the lounge directly outside my office, often with help from faculty and students. So, with us are Nick Northrup and Seymour Perspective. Nick Northrup, Crowfather.
Yep.
And Seymour Perspective, whose name I've written so many times and whose given name I have completely forgotten.
Seymour Perspective is
All right,
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So we will just keep it at that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming to speak at Creating Spaces yesterday, our event for young writers.
Yeah.
But Judy suggested that we reach out to you because you're an alum who has made good from, a baby poet.
Yep.
And now you're a spoken word hip hop artist, as
Yep.
you,
Mm-hmm.
an activist.
And
So-
that's it. Yeah. Try to be. Yeah.
And then with us is Afton Northrup, who is Nick's wife and also manager.
Yep.
Yes.
Which is, I love that you guys combine that. So
Yeah.
I could not manage my husband.
No, this is what we learned yesterday. This is the creative, and this is the control. It's a perfect world.
Together.
It's a perfect
control.
Exactly.
It's not even just like artist manager, it's also like I have the bachelor's in creative writing, she has the bachelor's in editing and publishing. It's like,
like
So it's really, it's both sides, yeah.
Love that.
two hemispheres of a writer brain.
Yep.
Yeah.
We love
Exactly.
it. Like,
My partner and I are both artists, so
That's, yeah.
and we're just struggling.
Just a maelstrom of creative energy. Like, no, that's awesome.
We're a mess.
No, it's fun. Do you ever, so I'm always curious about this, do you get competitive?
No.
No?
No, I mean, I think there's times where
Like in a healthy manner, but...
I mean, there's like little things, you know. I don't want to get to it. I don't want to like
Yeah.
put our business out
just
there.
gonna make first question.
Yeah. First question: how much do you love your partner?
On video.
No, but yeah, like not really,
Okay.
because I think we're both just so committed to our things,
Yeah, that's...
and our things are so different,
Okay.
you know, that they combine really well. Where it's like we're never trying to outdo one.
Got it. Just because I would always be curious, because there have, not that it's like a competitive thing, but there have been times where she's written like a poem or something like that, and I'm like, damn, that was really good. like,
You got to work that out.
yeah. Well, and it's not even like it's just kind of, it's more like like where am I at? Like, she thinks I'm great, but like, this is awesome. Like, what? Like, so it's just kind of like, it's...
Well, I just think that's part of the thing is kind of like not gassing each other up for the sake of gassing each other up, but like really being supportive and really, because when you're an artist, you're always like, what am I doing? What is this? No one cares. It's going into a void, you know, or like, I could be so much better, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so it's just really nice to have somebody like in your corner being like,
who's
you are dope.
Yes, who's also a creative.
Who's also dope.
And you think they're dope. Yes, yes. That is so cool.
And I'll say one of the most important things as somebody who's written a poem that he likes is that I've also written plenty of poems that he doesn't like. And vice versa. There have been times where he's written something I'm like, that does not land well. Don't do that. And so, part of being supportive is not just gassing somebody up, but it's also being like, you're better than this, and I know that. So rework that.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
Like, don't be impressed by every little thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, you're dope.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, knowing their potential, too.
Yeah, definitely. So.
Yeah, we love that. Wait, so you graduated from SMSU in 2012?
2013.
13.
Yes.
You just said it and I wrote it down wrong. And then you connected in the cities after that.
Well, actually, we've known each other since high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Aww.
So it was one of those. I went to Stillwater High School. He went to De La Salle, which is in Minneapolis, and then we both had friends at Woodbury, and so on the weekends we'd be in the same group of friends. We met at a Burger King. Super romantic. And we just
Many great relationships.
Started over those plastic trays.
But yeah, we maintained sort of a distant friend of friends style friendship through college, and then after college we started hanging out a little bit more frequently, and then finally in 2016 I basically hit him up and I was like, when are you going to ask me out? So
I just put out some new music, and she slid in my DMs.
Yep, absolutely.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Never not release music.
Yeah, word.
Always
You never know where it
the
leads.
right person is going to fall in love with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's
Yep.
great. I also watched my husband out in 2016, so
Nice.
it was
Yeah.
weird for that.
Yeah,
I was
it's
like,
weird.
you know what, screw it. Like,
It's time.
let's go.
Yeah, when are you gonna figure this out? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was how I phrased it too.
Yeah.
When are we gonna go on a date? Like, love it. And so where did you go to school? And
I went to a park high school. It's like 15 minutes southeast of St. Paul.
St. Paul Park. Okay, yeah.
No, it's past St. Paul Park.
No.
It's Cottage Grove.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I was never really represented. I don't talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
I wasn't like represented by that place.
Oh, yeah,
I don't like
Yeah.
represent it. You know what I mean? Like my house was like the hood where the brown people were, and we're all like the exotic smells and sounds and stuff were. And so I was really lucky that I had family all over the cities. I had family in Mexico, so I would travel around the cities. Like since I was an infant, basically, my mom would just like strap me on her back and like go do classes at Hamlin, and be on the bus with me. She always talks about me being such a good baby. She could just like bring me anywhere, which is hilarious because then I turned out to be a real. Can I swear? I turned out to be a real pain in the ass later on. So I guess it all balances out.
But I like your history as a former very sweet baby.
Yeah,
And it's just fun to know about a person.
Yeah,
where you're
yeah. Now I'm like a combination.
Pleasure to have in class, or no?
I am now.
No.
Depending on your sense of humor earlier, maybe.
Yeah. That's great. And so then how did you two connect?
The creative circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, hip hop spoken word community.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kyle Tranmere, Guante. We basically we were looking for poets that I had known throughout basically my time in Minneapolis, and he was one that kind of influenced me early on, and so I always knew of him. And we were starting to do a new open mic series in Minneapolis that was like that wasn't just another open mic. It was like an open mic, and it also had like featured artists to come through and kind of like inspire the people who were there for the first half.
Yeah.
And so,
Gotcha.
yeah, so it was like Crafted Cadence, so we had basically visiting authors, and one of the things that we were trying to, because you have a cisgendered white man hosting it, we wanted to try and get someone that's not that as like featured artists, and so we were making sure to reach out to different circles, and Guante was like, yeah, he's basically was saying, I have enough attention already, I'd rather do something to boost another like project I have with this other artist that I think really is important, and so I was like, man, whatever you want to do. And then he brought on Seymour, and we met, and it was just immediately like, okay, cool.
Yep.
And then doing this, we were just, again, same thing, trying to reach out, and I was just like, I pretty much knew Guante was going to say the same thing. So we were just like, hey, Seymour.
I mean, we basically reached out to Kyle because Kyle has like all of the best suggestions for other people that need a boost right now.
Yeah.
So like when we were doing Crafted Cadence, he not only suggested like, hey, from my day, let's bring on Seymour and we can do our Secret Rivers thing. But he's also like, if you haven't reached out, there's Taiwana Shim, there's like Douglas Kearney, like all of these other people he knew of, and he was like, put these people of color on, put these women on, like let's boost somebody other than the white male perspective. And so
he unknowingly pretty much rostered our next like 2 events.
yeah.
We were like, okay, yeah, we'll reach out to those people because it's like one of those things too where it's like when you meet people of a certain like resonance or like a certain wavelength, you kind of know that the people they trust with their creative energy are trustworthy to bring and create. And,
Totally.
Yes, and so it's like one of those things where I don't always trying to be very wary of like. Yeah. We bring in people that are just going, not only just like, because there's so much virtue signaling these days. And so it's like the people that feel like they're welcoming and warm and not just saying it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and you know that at their core, it's a very like, it's a human focus.
I always say it's like the difference between like a bullet point and a culture, right?
Yeah.
Like when you enter a space, you can feel the culture and what the values are. You either feel welcome or not, basically.
Yes.
And no matter what you say,
Very true.
right? You either feel welcome or not.
I feel like it's very, especially in music, like, and just kind of like the different spaces, different shows and stuff like that, like.
Oh, in hip hop especially.
In hip hop especially, yeah. Where you walk in and it's always like, it's a weird thing because it's not nearly as like volatile as it used to be. Because I remember, like hearing hip hop stories of like if you weren't good, you had to be ready to fight. Like kind of because dudes would just jump you and take the mic and it was their show now. And like that doesn't happen. That's not happened forever. But there's this weird like
not really in the cities.
Not really in the cities. That's because we're way too passive aggressive for that.
Yeah,
it's Minnesota. But it's like there's still very much that like if I don't know you or my friends don't know you, it's very cold.
Yeah.
It like you can walk into a hip hop show and it's like I can know 10 other people, but I can still feel like I'm alone at that show.
Yeah.
And so it's like
and you still end up talking to no one.
Yeah. It's weird. Like you say hi to people, but then it's just like there's this weird awkward kind of yeah. And so it's I don't know all that to say like it's awesome when I meet somebody that's actually like you can sit and have a conversation with.
Yeah. And like not sizing you up.
Yeah.
Trying to outdo you or it's like artists are people too.
Yeah.
Last week we chatted with the producer of one of my favorite podcasts, which is Working It Out with Mike Birbiglia, where he writes jokes basically with fellow comics. And I was like, "Is Mike Birbiglia a jerk?" and he was like, "No." And I was like, "I knew he probably wasn't a jerk." He was like, "In fact, he shields us from jerks. There's some comedians that they want to have on the show that they're like." No, and he'll hear him in his office, just being like, "Okay, we're not working with you." So just like finding people who have that good taste. It sounds like is like, has kept you going.
Absolutely, and it's like, and I've never wanted to like capitulate or anything like if I felt someone like I mean with the whole boycott thing that happened, like that was always like. Like, what would you do? And then just the kind of the conversations around, like, what would you do if an artist that you really didn't like, but was super successful, reached out and wanted to collab with you? You'd still do it. And it's like, no, I wouldn't. And that's, like, I'd like same with you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, I mean, they just wouldn't. It's not, like, people act like it's so easy to sell out.
Yeah.
But it's like, even if you really try to sell out and you just make the corniest
hard.
Pop, radio, whatever, like, that doesn't mean anybody's gonna buy it, listen to it, want it in their lives. You know? And so like when you got something, you got to give it to people. And if you want to create, then that means it's something inside of you wants to get out. And if it wants to get out, then that means it's going to reach other people unless you get in the way.
Yeah.
And so if you try to cater to this group or that group or whatever, that's going to set you completely off the bat.
One thing that really sticks with me that I heard at one point was you reach the universal through the specific. Yeah. Like the more you kind of get honed into your own like actual human experience, that's going to be the thing that actually like makes you relatable to the masses.
I often run into this in intro to creative writing classes. Students especially feel like they have to be relatable and be really general, right? They're like, "I'm writing about love." You're like, no, you're writing about your idea of love, and then you're also being so vague that, like, I don't have anything to anchor myself in this.
We're speaking in ideologies, and exactly. Like, there's nothing concrete for actually to create a story around it.
Well, I find that a lot of young writers, and I work with kids of all ages, so I work with like elementary school kids. You know, they have all these cliches, and so, and it's like that's great because those are the things you hear, and that's you know, and it's like okay, now that you have this cliche, what if you transform it into something else?
Yeah.
What if you make it personal, right? Because I always tell them, like, if I say hip-hop, you all think of your idea of what hip-hop is. Your brain is filled with your own associations of hip-hop. So I have to be more specific, right, about what that means to me because, this is my time on the mic.
Yeah.
What do you say about what it means to you specifically?
Hip hop in general?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like just the images that come to mind are like a dusty gray boombox, like at the end of a gravelly driveway, and kind of everywhere, like at the park and like on the basketball court, and like at the top of the stairs because I'm in kindergarten, like vacuuming the stairs for my mom. And it just always felt like with music anything was possible, and so hip hop does that. It gives you that kind of, if you are someone who has felt a way about like your context in society, hip hop can be so empowering and so educational. It can give you the language. It can give you the strength, the strength and the inspiration. So it can give you like these tangible and intangible things at the same time. And so for me, like I really latched on to like this art form is about being the dopest you that you can be. Because it's not about sounding like everybody else. There's a lot of that in the industry, but hip hop is about being doper than everybody. But only comes from oppressed people being invisibilized in society. And so they're like, I'm beautiful. I'm so dope. I'm a magnificent lover. I'm a whatever, right? All this old school braggadocio. It just comes from the world needing to tell the world that they exist and that they're beautiful, whether they acknowledge them or not.
That's lovely.
Yeah. I love the dusty gray boombox because when I think immediately the images that come to my head, I see breakers, I see graffiti.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's the culture.
Yeah, it's the culture. Yeah, exactly. And it's just to piggyback off what you were saying at the end there. It's like the thing that I love about hip hop is it's always at its core it's supposed to be about speaking the truth. And so it's always just been like storytellers kind of getting back to like I've always like hip hop is us getting back to our roots. It's getting back to our cultural roots as a human race because we used to storytell before we had written art, before we had anything else.
And everywhere around the world, right?
Yeah.
Like before colonization, all these people were indigenous to the different places of the world. You know? And hip hop manages to really connect to that in very specific ways. You know, with like African drumming and like Afro, Mexican, all kinds of stuff that I've found and dug into. And so it's just like, I don't know, that's what brings it all to life.
And then it's just, like you're saying, how it's growing, like how it's getting back. Like hip hop started in New York and it started in America, but it's a global thing now.
Yeah.
Like we were just talking about Kneecap earlier. There's this Irish trio that, since they have found success, the amount of users on Duolingo that are now learning the Irish language has like quadrupled.
Yeah.
Like they're
like promoting
the Irish
keeping
language. The Irish language alive through hip hop. Like, and that's insane.
And because of their relationship with colonization and music and the way that they approach it and language, indigenous people all over the world relate with them.
Yeah.
You know, right? So like Palestinians are like, Kneecap is dope.
Yeah, because
right?
Kneecap
like
is also Kneecap.
Native Americans are like Kneecap.
Yes,
you know,
because they're talking about being oppressed by the British government and that they've dealt with there, and all the basically the silencing and the erasure of the Irish language until they basically helped start this movement to like bring it back. Because it was not so long ago; it was illegal. We could get a citation for speaking Irish in public.
Yeah, same with native languages here, and they're facing the same thing.
Just fighting colonization.
Yeah. Colonization gonna colonize, you know.
Right.
That's why hip hop's so beautiful.
And that's it. And that's such a story with how hip hop relates to people in different cultures, right?
Yeah.
Like they picked up on it and they found it in Ireland for the same reasons that we do here. You know, we relate with it. We see someone speaking up for the oppressed, for themselves, telling the world, no, you can't ignore me. Telling the world, we're here and we're beautiful and we're brilliant.
Yeah.
And when you see that, you know, you either relate with it or you get mad about it. and guess which side of the spectrum.
Yeah, if you're getting mad about that,
come from.
You may want to examine.
Yeah, turn that down. I can't understand it. You know, there's too much bass. And it's like, I don't know. Paul McCartney played some pretty gnarly bass, you know, some pretty heavy bass back in the day, right?
So why do they have to swear?
Yeah.
Have you ever cursed when you're angry?
Yeah.
No.
I've never heard a rock musician swear.
Oh, right? Yeah, never.
That's something I'm always curious about, is like why people are drawn to one specific form of art. You know, is because you started off as a poet in Judy's classes and other classes here at SMSU.
Oh, nice.
Right? Were you always a poet when you entered as a creative writing major?
I was like, so it was like one of those things where like when I was younger, it was like a secret that I wanted to rap.
Huh.
And so it was like, I didn't feel like I could. I didn't feel like I had a place in hip-hop. Because I understood that I was going to be a guest in the culture, and so that was always one of those things where I wanted to be respectful of that. I wanted to be allowed to appreciate the culture without stepping on any toes or doing anything wrong. So I was a poet because I could be a poet. And then I wrote stories because I could write stories. And then it was like, the more I started studying hip-hop and then came here and like was learning how to write, like it was all kind of with the goal in mind of like, someday I'll be good enough at my craft that I'll be allowed to be in hip-hop. And so that was kind of always the underlying kind of thing. It was like, I wanted to be good at all of it, but like I definitely wanted to try my hand at hip-hop. And then like after being in therapy, kind of learning that like, oh, I had a story to tell. And like I had a reason to be here. And so it was like, then it was, whilst I was here, started writing songs, dabbling a little bit, and then figuring it out. But it was always, I'd say, yeah, I was a poet first, and then kind of used that as a transition. I talked about, was able to meet with Idea. Michael Larson, great poet, great MC. Artist in general, yeah,
with Idea.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
Idea. It took me a second.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Idea,
Yeah.
EYEDEA, Idea and Abilities. He is
Such a silly name.
it's such a silly name, but it's like, but it works.
Idea.
The ideas.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. He, because I saw him at a show, a really small show, and I managed to talk to him for like 15, 20 minutes. And one of the things I'd asked him, I was like, look, dude, I've always loved hip hop. I'm a creative writing student. Like, how do I bridge that gap? And he was just like, are you a poet? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay. Poetry, slam, hip hop.
Oh.
He's like, do it like that. He's like, that'll help you train your brain into. And so, and it did. Because it was like, even just like listening to like the raps and stuff that I was doing while I was kind of working with slam, and then even kind of still transitioning out of slam into more hip hop, it was like, there's a definite evolution. Like, my voice and my flow, like, I would say the first project I put out, you can still hear who I was, like, the influences that I was emulating. So I was trying to find my comfort, my own voice.
Right.
And then as it keeps going, and then the last couple projects, it's just like, yeah, I am my own thing finally.
Well, and hopefully you don't stop.
Oh, never.
You know, because if it's like, oh, okay, cool, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here. All right, bye.
Yeah, you're already toast. You're
Right. Well, and that's one of the things that I kind of said to, what I was saying to the younger writers yesterday was like, I finished with saying, like, find a measure of success that means something to you. And then find a group of people that wants you to find that. And let them feed your soul, because eventually your art will feed theirs.
Can you share what your measure of success is?
So my measure of success was always like, we had students, a student asked me what motivated me to get into music in the last class. And for me it was like Chester Bennington, lead singer in Linkin Park. When I was a kid, he was the guy that helped me figure out I had depression. And kind of helped me feel normal about it. Because I was like, there's this wildly successful, like, famous dude. And he's still dealing with this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But he's like using his art and his platform to talk to us kids about this. And so that was like, I latched onto that early and kind of used that as like, if I was ever allowed to do hip hop, then I was going to use it to speak to kids like myself. Because it was like between Chester and Linkin Park, and then it was like there was the whole rap rock thing, which really made me look at rap. And then I started listening to earlier Eminem, and like him and I have very similar childhoods. And so it was like, hearing that and being able to relate with someone on that level was like, that was so cathartic for me, and that helped me to keep going, because I was like, oh, I'm not being punished for something. Like, I didn't do something horrible to deserve all of this. I've just had a bad hand. And so I was like, hearing that it can get better and hearing that all of that was like such a big thing for me. And so I was always to the idea of like, if I get somewhere, if I help at least one person, then I'm good. And I was able to do that. I had a woman come up to me at a show like 2 years ago, basically say there's one of my verses that she had listened to every day for like 6 months, and that helped her keep going. And
Mission accomplished.
Speechless. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just like, all right,
everyone.
Cool. So then that's all in my mind. It was like I found that measure of success to let me know that I keep going. Like, regardless of how the struggle is, like it doesn't. I help someone. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's the thing, right? You're just kind of casting a net. You're saying something that you believe in.
Yeah.
So you're saying it like you believe in it, and then people are prone to like get something from it, and the people who need it will find it. And my whole thing is like whether it's like in my lifetime or not.
Yeah.
The work will be there. The work will
Right.
last. There's going to be traces of it everywhere. I've made damn sure of it.
I think that's a really good point to bring up too. In your lifetime or not, like Van Gogh was not popular till after he died.
Yeah.
And now he's like the most well-known painter in
Right.
the world. And he died poor. He died destitute. He thought that he was a no-name, and he lived and died knowing that. He kept creating anyway. And now his work inspires people, and they look at his art and they go like, that gives me a reason to think. That gives me a reason to like feel something. And so your art lives on.
And he kept doing his thing. And he
Yeah.
got just deeper and deeper into it.
Which goes
He was
back
really
to
committed.
it's your truth.
Yes.
That's the root of hip hop.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
100%. Yeah. Don't mimic.
Yeah.
Like whether it be your heroes or the culture or whatever. It's like bring you to it, And there's really interesting cases of people who are not who you would think of as being like, because MCs are like cool and like whatever and all these things, right? But it's like there are some characters, and there should be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it takes all kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the beautiful. It's like a catch-22 with social media and the internet. Is like it allowed everyone a platform, and it allowed too many options for people who want to consume the art.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it allowed us an avenue to find that niche. Like, and that's why it's like you can sustain yourself off like fans all over the world. And those people will love you for your art and all this. You just have to find them. And that's where it's like trying to find them is the hard part.
Yeah, and that is actually something that I started this series to try to help address, right? If you're a creative person and you graduate with a beautiful art degree of some kind, there isn't like an art factory you can go to right after you graduate.
Yeah.
And so if you are trying to make a living, you have to experiment with a lot of things, right? I imagine you guys probably have questions about how that works for you two on like a day-to-day basis. Or I have questions.
Yeah.
Like, how do you make your money? She said gauchely.
I'd say let's see where to start.
Yeah.
Sure.
We'll follow.
Yeah. I think it comes back to me to this idea that a friend of mine shared a while back, and it was I just told you this the other day. Being an artist, it's like you have to be like a bowling ball. Not that you're like in a lane and like knocking things over, but as a physical object in terms of wherever things go, you're your own center of gravity, and you're always upright, right? And you're always balanced, right? And there's a weight to that, right? And so I just find myself very interested in so many things, and I just try to allow myself, like I don't really believe in like even mastering a thing per se, you know what I mean? So I could stick to one and master it, but like that's not real to me. I think you can devote yourself to these different crafts, and you can have reverence for them and participate with them and engage in conversations across culture and time, and geography, and so I just try to follow these different things, right? So it's like I'm doing like beautiful prints now. I'm doing like
cool.
some screen printing and like digital printing of my visual art and that kind of thing. I teach a lot too, so I'm always like in a classroom teaching hip hop culture, spoken word culture. They are twins, you know. They both come from West Africa through the tradition of the griot and through the blues and R&B and all this stuff, right? And so this connects too with like how hip hop came to be. It's like it comes from storytelling. It turns into poetry. That's literally what happened, right? Storytelling and poetry, and you know, jazz and the blues, and you know, all these different things that finally, right before it was spoken word poetry, right? It wasn't spoken word yet, but it was, right? It just didn't have a name yet.
Yeah.
And right at that edge, that's right where hip hop came to be, right? And so I just try to bring that wherever I can. I feel like conveying some of that is like a big part of what I can do.
Right.
And so I'm in a lot of classrooms and stuff, but I'm like making films now and stuff.
Cool.
You know, dreaming up projects and you know getting grants and you know just arting the fuck out of this.
Yeah, grants are hard, but so when I got my first grant, I was like, really?
Yeah.
You wanted to? They're not that hard.
Yeah.
A lot of people get them, but I just thought of them as like pie in the sky. But.
Totally.
I think that's how a lot of people view them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's this big, like you're never going to get that. And so people just don't even try for it. When, like, honestly, a lot of the grants just sit there.
Right.
Like, waiting for people to apply for them. And then it's like they lose funding because not enough people are applying for these grants. And so it's like...
You have a way better chance of getting any grant than getting any lotto or whatever. I mean, you know, right? Like, you may as well.
And that's one of the things, too, is, like, you talk, like, grant work and community work. I would say that's where, I mean, that's where you
I think of education and community.
Yeah, education and community and stuff like that. Like, that's where, like, there's sustainability and there is money. But then it's just like, I don't know. It's like a weird kind of... It's like trying to like say like you can make money from it, but don't expect to.
Yeah.
Like that
don't
kind
be
of
like,
thing.
I will be an educator.
Like it's not that you can't, and it's just like there's really one of the things that I was coming here with the mind of like really pushing is like don't be afraid to sell yourself, not sell out, but don't be afraid to sell yourself. But it's like you are a creator, you are a speaker, you are all of these things, and you have something to offer communities, and you have something to offer. Classrooms, workshops.
Tell people what you do.
Tell people what you do, exactly. And so that's something I feel like I didn't do enough of when I first left college, and that's why I feel like it took me a few years to really get going. But...
And probably why it took some time for you two to get together.
Maybe,
It seems like it's tied in
I had
there.
some life to live. So...
We shouldn't have gotten together any sooner than we did.
No.
We're both cooking. So
yeah, we're both cooking. And that's one of those things, too, where it's like, I don't... You know, success looks different to so many people. For me, it's like, it would have been, part of me would have loved to be successful and famous at a young age, straight out of college, blah, 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 blah. But then I would have had to deal with my own trials with addiction and my own trials with grief and all of that in the public eye with success, with people just letting me do whatever the hell I wanted to do. And so that was kind of a weird thing that I got from only just starting to really get traction in the last few years, where it's just like, I've watched how many celebrities and how many artists have to go through that in the limelight and how much worse it is for them because of that. And so that's like, I get to now speak with gratitude that I already went through all of that, and I feel like that's wisdom I get to put into the music as well.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I got a literary agent for a first book in grad school, and I was like, I have it made. And in retrospect, had we successfully worked together, it would have been terrible. If she kept being like, I'm going to sell it for millions of dollars. And I'm like, if I had just like gone from like grad school to like first book, like what would I have to write about? Anything.
Right.
It felt very crushing.
Yeah, like it's like success in like I don't know, popular culture success. I think is like so bad for art.
Yeah.
Because there's so many hands in it, and there's so much money tied up in it. I always say that like it's such a good time to be an independent artist.
Yeah.
Because you get to say what you want, how you want to say it. You get to say what you really mean, and there's nobody like, oh, well, we can't do it, so, you know, it's just you, and it's such a gift because you get to be weird and weird, like interesting and cool, you know, as opposed to like trying, like being an underground artist, but pretending like you have a chance at appealing to this weird industry that doesn't care about you at all.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's it, I guess.
Just to provide more like concrete details to like what it actually looks like day to day.
Right.
Control, creative, control. You can apply for grants, and the big hurdle is reading the paperwork and filling it out, and that's the hardest part of applying to a grant. And there's a lot of imposter syndrome that goes into it, but you submit that, you probably have a 50-50 shot getting it. So that's one great thing you can do. You can reach out to different venues and like be creative with that too. A library is a venue. A bookstore is a venue. A brewery is a venue. Tell them what you have to offer. Ask them if they have an advertising department. That's how we got Crafted Cadence going. And you know, you charge a $5 cover, and you give that money back to the artists. And in doing so, you might not make a profit, but you're building relationships for future things, and you're helping other artists.
100%. I mean, that's like why I'm here. Is that exact thing, right? Because like working with you two was just a pleasure. It's just like like these people like. Are not fucking around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's because it's just so clear because so many people are. You know? And so it's a breath of fresh air. And I just think that part of it is like, you know, you do good work and then you get good work.
Yes.
You know? And so just keep that cycle going. And there's ups and downs. It ebbs and flows. It undulates.
Don't be afraid of the day job either.
Do what you gotta do. That's the whole idea.
I work at admissions at the U of M. It's a day job. He bartends.
Yeah.
You still get to talk to people. You get to hear their stories, and that helps inform a new creative piece for you. Like you can always find the creativity in the mundane. You just have to be thinking about like how can I leverage this thing that I need for a paycheck to help boost my art.
I always think of it like, for me, it was like one step here. You know, ride like the jobby job, like until I couldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because I feel like my sense of purpose has been like pretty strong since I was young.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know, this company doesn't respect me. These people don't respect me. You know what I mean? It's like, why am I
giving them my life?
Why are any of us?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I was just kind of, I don't know, for some reason I grew up being able to be like, no.
Yeah.
You know?
Just work a job.
And not like privileged, you know what I mean? But like, I won't do that to myself.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like, you do that, but then, you know, you get what you need to survive or whatever, and then you kind of, you do your creative work, and then you're kind of bringing those closer and closer together the further you go until they become the same thing.
Yeah.
You know? And I think a part of that is, like, for me, you asked, like, the specifics, is, like, learning how to do all of these aspects. Those are skills that now I can, you know, lease. Right? So, like, people need design, they need video, they need music production, they need beats. You know, they need a poem for their event at the Ordway. You know what I mean? And they know who to look for because I'm out here kicking ass. You know?
We love it.
More or less, they know.
Yeah, exactly. and to speak to that, it's like you have to realize, like, as you're doing, like, you're getting better at graphic design, video editing, all of these things, whatever you're doing to market yourself, that's also experience you can then put on your resume. And like that was something that like recently we were really thinking about. Like I've been doing this music thing for 10 years, and so it's like all of the experience I've gained in the different mediums that I've learned experience, and like that's all stuff you can put on your resume now. Where it's like I have social media experience, I have this, that, and the other thing. Where it's like I was able to go to a day job for a few years because I had management experience, I had all this stuff. So it's like things that you can kind of cross over.
Absolutely, I think all artistic skills are transferable to everything else in the world.
Good communication
needs to be done,
especially like just the fact that you can write well. That's a big thing nowadays.
Let me do copy for that thing. You know.
Not just good communication, but unique creative communication, because with ChatGPT, everybody's got their like string of adjectives that's very formal and very stiff and looks like a resume.
And wonky.
And yeah.
It's like not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point now where like everything that you put into GPT comes out as like a perfectly crafted marketing piece, and it's just so obvious. And so to like have soul and to be weird is going to be what makes you stand out. And so finding the ways to do that, and saying that as somebody with a marketing background who does the business management thing, I read ChatGPT and I'm like, this is like stuff that I did for ad agencies. It's just spitting it out perfectly. Like we've got the hyphenated modifying adjectives right there that he would never think to say those things, you know? And so finding ways to like flex the fact that you are original, because that's what people are going to buy into, because you can see that human element is missing in a lot of things nowadays.
And people miss it. People are so hungry for it.
Well,
just humanity, you know. Like, there's like you're talking to people and there's no humanity, right? And it's not because they're crappy people. It's because our society is crushing people, just churning them through. You know, these systems of death and profit. Not to put too fine a point on.
That's what I feel like I love so much about art projects, right? Or sometimes they're unintended effects. For instance, we have a friend who lives out here. He makes zines. He's just Paco the zine guy. He's up to like 80 zines. He's relentless. They're just like a single sheet, like that he's colored, copied.
Amazing.
Yes, covered in buttons. But he wasn't always Paco the zine guy. In 2020, he was just Paco, the guy who happened to be going to George Floyd Square for the first time.
He was Paco the guy.
Paco the guy. And Paco saw on, like, there's some beautiful murals. And Paco was like, I must create.
Yep.
Like, Paco had a lightning moment. And then a thing I didn't know is that one of my friend Maddie was working there at the time, and Maddie helped make sure those murals happened. So
that's super cool.
Paco mailed us a copy of his first. but, you know, like, where it's just like, you're making art, and then there are side quests that occur as a result of the beautiful things you've put out.
Right. Well, and it's just you never know what's going to inspire someone.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, even like when you're younger, you feel like those inspirational moments have to be grand. They have to be this big thing. I have to affect thousands. If I'm going to do anything, if I'm going to actually inspire, it has to reach this many people.
Yeah.
And then as I've gotten older, it's just like, if I even a handful, that's beautiful to me. Like, because I don't know what, you know, because in my mind it's going to kickstart, like, that person's going to start creating, and then they might inspire somebody else, and then they'll inspire somebody else. And it's like, in my mind, it's just it's keeping creativity alive.
Yeah.
And kind of keeping that aspect of the human soul, like, vibrant. And it's, especially now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is like seeing somebody that's basically giving you permission to like be weird and interesting and curious and creative. I just think that that's kind of like what I think that's probably most of our work, and that's why it's so important that we be so authentic, that we really reach inside of ourselves to bring something, and care and learn and connect it to all these other things, right? But like to have it really be something that comes from us is so important, because just the nature of the thing is like we're giving people options and permission to imagine themselves and the world and the context and our relationships in different ways.
Well, it's a hectic time of the semester, and you guys have a busy day. But are there any final like questions you want to ask these fine folks that come all this way, or words of advice you would like to give people who are like, I'm a creative writing major at SMSU. Help! What do next after I depart?
I don't mind giving you all a second to think about it, if you can like cut, you know, if you can cut it out later.
Yeah.
Because sitting in silence thinking about it, I think, is so important. So it's
hard.
like, take a moment and see if, you know, anything comes up. Otherwise, as you can see, we could probably talk for days.
Oh, yeah.
I want us to not cut the silence.
Oh, don't worry, I wasn't going to do it anyway.
Corey, everybody.
I guess, when does kind of poetry transformed into hip hop? Like, what's the like the translation of it? Because there's similar things of like rhyme, rhythm, beat, stuff like that, having something meaningful. But when is the like transition?
Mm-hmm. I think it's more of a cultural transition. Yeah. It's like I said, like the way that hip hop became was first being storytelling and poetry and music and putting them together, and then it was spoken word, and then spoken word was like the first spoken word artists were also like the first hip hop artists. Right, like the Last Poets and Gil Scott Heron, right? This is like they're like the midwives of hip hop and spoken word, both, right? And so I think that for me it was very much the same, and I think a lot of people probably the same. And just thinking about like even the early days of hip hop, you know, people were being inspired by their parents' old records, their old soul records, and all this stuff, right? And that was like became a foundation in terms of sampling and all this stuff, right? And so even that connects to like this progress that brings you to hip hop. And I maybe I digress. Maybe
I think because I've been thinking about how I was going to answer it, and it's like I don't know that they're different. Because I think hip hop is poetry. It's just hip hop is like just poetry in motion.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's a feel, right? Right, and so I think that's the cultural context, though, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you have a knack for storytelling, or you have an interest in it. You find poetry, or you find creative writing. You know, you find poetry. Something clicks. Suddenly, you're writing for yourself. This is my story now. You know, all of this. You're writing for yourself. You're figuring things out. Your notebooks become mirrors and maps, and then that you find something that speaks to you through hip hop, and you're like, oh, because you know storytelling, because you care about poetry, right? It connects with you in a way that you get what they're doing potentially, right? And then so once you get that influence, it's kind of hard to get that kind of bee out of your bonnet.
I think the thing that really drew me to hip hop was it was poetry with a score, and so it was like it's you find the things that are these like they're very poetic thoughts in here. There's very really deep metaphors, deep visuals, and all that kind of thing. It's a great story, and there's music behind it. So that was always it adds another layer to it, because there's like. I love it when you get an artist who's like the song, the beat itself brings you dopamine, and it gives you kind of this lighthearted but then they're talking about like almost dying, like, and it's just like the juxtaposition of that is like it creates. I don't know. It's so hard.
Well, it's like when art is just beautiful, it's so arresting, right? And so it just kind of like stops you and affects you.
Yeah.
And it can be beautiful art about terrible things, and it's still like fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So whenever you find that, do that. It doesn't wherever it is, right?
And then just it's like and speaking of like craft of like going from poetry to hip hop, that's just all about finding your rhythm.
I'd say it's a spectrum, and not like a high to low, but like when you look at a color wheel and there's all these different shades, you can have poetry and hip hop on the same spectrum, and it's just are you going to go this way or that way on it as you kind of move your way across the scale from one to the other. When I think of like a good bridge, like something that was really influential for me into like liking hip hop, because I was a heavy metal listener, like I was the goth kid in high school, is Diggable Planets.
Yes.
Look up the album Rebirth of Slick by Diggable Planets. It's from the 90s.
Look up both their albums.
Well, yeah, both of their albums. But they kind of have almost like a beatnik poetry like feel to their lyrics, where like they're like snapping their fingers and like you can almost see like them sitting in a coffee shop on stage with a spotlight and like somebody just sitting there with a drum like after they say a line or something. But you've got like the hip hop boom bap sort of beats behind it too. So it's a really good crossover between the two.
Totally. Yeah. And they're like so much of that like Phil Scott Heron, Last Poets. Like the actual beat poets are a part of the story as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
He's being talked about a lot right now too, because of the Revolution will not be televised poem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh well,
Always. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that dude was making beautiful art until the day he died.
Incredible.
Oh, that Tribe Called Quest.
Tribe Called Quest,
Oh, yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
and they were the same thing. They were kind of bridging,
Yep.
you know, these different times and moments into right now
That makes me think of
with these enhancements. you know, these like
De La Soul. They're another
De
one,
La
too.
Soul.
They're another one,
They're a
too.
huge
Yeah.
influence. They're a huge inspiration for me. And again, same thing. Like still making music. One of them passed just a couple years back, but they were releasing stuff until the very end.
Yeah, until the very end. I saw them. Sound say like 10 years ago.
Mm.
I guess it would have been longer than that. But at that point, they're definitely old heads. And you could see like a lot of the young crowd leaving, and I'm like, y'all are dumb.
Yeah.
And they got up and they put on one of the best shows of the entire day.
Mhm.
I was like, this is what happens when you've been doing it for
They're
30
artists.
years.
Yeah.
Like, they've been doing it for 30 years. They've been perfecting this. You think they don't know how? They're MCs.
Mhm.
Like original. Like you don't think they're not gonna.
MC.
Yeah. So
That's great.
it's so cool.
Well, I loved learning that you were a delightful baby. You were a former goth kid.
Yes.
And that you received foundational life advice from IDEA.
No.
Among all young person identities that you've had in this
Oh,
room.
while we're doing fun facts,
Yeah.
I shared the stage with Umar bin Hassan of the Last Poets
Oh, very
in
cool.
Chicago a while back. Yes.
Other fun facts?
She was like, that was a good one.
Facts. Like, yeah.
I was also a good baby. My first word was hi. Everyone.
My first word was hi.
Yep.
Well,
Hi to everyone. And then I was a very angry goth teenager. So
Sweet.
Yeah, there you go.
and now I'm a straight A student and very type A person. So pendulum swings. Man. It's okay.
Yeah. Be who you are.
Yeah.
You are,
Even when
whatever
that's
that
different from yesterday.
These guys, the students with us, Connor and Kristen, are among the nicest students, and I'm worried they're going to reveal, like, oh yeah, when I was 5, I was a serial killer.
Hey, you know
Or
what?
they're
That's
about to
great.
be.
They're about to be. Yeah, I'm going to evolve from that. So.
Family stopped bringing pets home.
You learn a lot when you're teaching creative nonfiction workshop, man. Well, thank you guys so much for being here, and I hope people can come to the event at 7 tonight, because where you get to sing instead of talk, or spit instead of talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, really appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks a lot for
Thanks for
having
having
us.
us.